All right, Tyson. So we're moving on to Sunday night football. We did okay on Thursday night. I was lucky enough to get third place in a single entry. Fell short of a couple grand there, but I ended up winning like 150. It was an interesting game overall. Kind of surprising to see the Chiefs lose there, but I think we can put a lot of the blame on Kadarius Toney. Hopefully we can do a little bit better here on the Sunday night football show. You ready to look at it, man?
Let's do it, man. What is up, guys? Welcome to the Edge DFS. My name is Tyson Smith, joined by Ellie Hernandez. Ellie, we're coming off of a Thursday night slate, first game of the year. Now we're moving on to Sunday night. We've also got main slate coming up. This is a great time of the year, man. I'm super excited. I was kind of giddy going into Thursday, man. It was like Christmas morning, waking up on Thursday and having to wait all day. Kind of I wouldn't call that a great game. It was fun to watch. Very sad to see a guy like Patrick Mahomes, the best quarterback of his generation, throwing to scrubs who cannot catch. I hope that turns around. If not, they're going to have to go trade for somebody or do something because, look, I do think that Toney could eventually be like an okay, number 2 or 3 option, but they got to be real with themselves, man. He's just not a number 1 guy. He's a gadget dude that you can get the ball to in space. He can score you touchdowns, but they need a number 1 guy. Sky Moore didn't look great either. I don't want to go on too much about this. We'll obviously jump into this Sunday night game, but I do want to do a little review of kind of what happened for that slate. So Ellie, this is your lineup right here. This was the $30K, the $5 single entry. Patrick.
No, this is the $3.
Oh, okay. Well, was it $3? Okay. Anyways, Patrick Mahomes captain, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jared Goff, David Montgomery, Sam Laporta, and this is Blake Bell. So interesting build. You hand built this one, right?
Yeah, man. I hand built this one. I mean, we were talking about it on the show that we did a little bit on Thursday. This was really going to be the approach that I took. I specifically said that I had no problem playing Pat Mahomes at captain because I had zero problem punting at the fucking flex with Pat Mahomes stack there. And I think there were a couple guys that were able to do that. Justin Watson, he was also an incredible play. He had an opportunity to maybe surpass Blake Bell and be in the optimal as well. So I just feel like this was kind of the optimal way to go. And especially for cash, I didn't have as much as Goff in GPP. So it really helped kind of having a little bit more exposure to him here. Anyways, it worked out, man. Sam Laporta got a bunch of those dump off catches, so that helped. But I think what you needed was it Josh Reynolds instead of Laporta, and that would have got it done.
Yeah, let's take a look at the winner here. We had our boy from the Discord, SRT41. He was creeping at the top here of the Millie Maker for a while, but it ended up getting split, 19, or no, not 19. I don't even know how many ways. I think it was like four
ways.
Okay. This is the winner. So Patrick Mahomes, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jared Goff, David Montgomery, Josh Reynolds instead. Let's talk briefly about Blake Bell here, because obviously when Kelsey was announced out, we all kind of knew it was going to happen midway through the day. They elevated another tight end. We go, okay, all right, it looks like he's not playing. And then, some of that ownership went to Gray. Now, to me, Gray and Blake Bell are the same guy, and I feel like they have similar type upside. And to me, it was just so obvious, a dude who's going to be like 2 or 3% owned, to just play him instead. So why'd you pick Blake Bell here in the lineup that you built?
Actually, you're probably going to laugh. You were talking about it in the Discord. I had just gotten off of work and I was getting caught up, but literally your option was Noah Gray at pretty much the same price as Josh Reynolds. And then Justin Watson. That's the only thing you probably could have done differently here. I mean, instead of doing that, I just decided to go Blake Bell and Josh Reynolds. I had no reason to pay $2,400 for a tight end. when Blake Bell was going to get similar opportunity, maybe a little bit less at $200, and the opportunity cost wasn't so high. So really, that was the reason. Again, we just want to chop it up in the Discord. We said that we would be doing that all week, and that hour beforehand, like that really kind of drove me to this cash build as we started to get all the news about inactives and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. One guy you're missing for here is Rashee Rice. We all thought once he scored that touchdown and once he kind of crept over that 11-point range, okay, this guy's going to be optimal. What was he, 4,200, 4,400? I forgot. He was quite a bit more expensive. And that's the thing with Showdown. It's like, dude, some of these guys who, like a $200 Blake Bell, a $2,800 Reynolds, you might, if you can get that big enough discount, you're probably not screwed if a 3% owned guy at 4,400 scores. Now that's the interesting thing. You got multiple 3% owned dudes that kind of went off. You got Blake Bell, you got Rashee Rice, you had Detroit's defense score a touchdown. I think you got what was they getting, 9 fantasy points. So thanks to Tony, appreciate it. So anyways, it was a very interesting game. I was kind of disappointed just the lack of offensive productivity from the Chiefs, but we kind of talked about it. Like, this is the first game, obviously Kelsey's out. This isn't an asterisk situation. Like, you gotta line up and win the games you gotta win. But I figured they would shift a little bit and find somebody else to pick it up. I'm not worried about the Chiefs this year. I think they're gonna be fine. Let's move on, unless you got anything else to note on that.
I'm good.
All right, let's move on to this matchup for Sunday Night Football. Dallas Cowboys going into New York against the Giants. Cowboys are 3.5-point favorites. This is a 45.5-point total. So division rivals, first game of the year. I know it's a relatively, it's not a low total, but it's not high. I feel like this could hit the under. We always kind of talk about it like division rivals, especially week 1, man. This could absolutely be 20 to 17 game. What do you think about where are you kind of put in your mind where this game is going to go? Are you ready to build big Cowboy stacks, 4-2 stacks, 5-1 stacks? Like, do you think this is going to be an offensive shootout? You thinking about integrating some defenses and kickers? Where are you going?
I think defenses and kickers are a little bit in play here. Not so much defense, but a little bit more kicker. I'm going to stick to my 2-4-4-2 builds just because it's a little bit easier for me anyways. I mean, we just saw it, right? 2-4 took it down. 2-4 got me third place. And again, not that I'm married to that particular build, but especially for lines like this where it's 3.5 points is the spread. You got 45.5 total. Like, it's definitely a game where people are likely going to build 3-3 just because they want to be balanced to both sides in a competitive matchup. But if pricing in the field lets you, I think you go 2-4-4-2, and this is a good game to do it on. And this is going to be an interesting one. Maybe you do a Dallas kind of onslaught stack. You have Dallas defense, and then you fade Daniel Jones. So I think there's a lot of different options that we have available for this. And, again, plug the Discord, but we need to find out what's going with Waller. We'll get to that in injuries. Looks like he's going to play, but obviously that matters. It's kind of similar to the Kansas City slate, where the tight end position is just such a big deal that it does shift. Like what does Pete Overzet always say? Flip the slate on its head or whatever. But it matters. So it's going to open up some value and it's going to change some things. But if he's out, right, I can really see this hitting the under. Otherwise, I think 45.5 is probably a good line.
Yeah, Darren Waller, he should play, at least based on what we're seeing. It seems like he's trending towards playing, but you just never know. I'm not really committing to anything until I get those inactives, or at least throughout the day, kind of seeing where he's at. We'll probably get some reports, and obviously get some reports right before warm-ups too. Let's do our injuries now.
Yeah, just pain. It was pain everywhere.
All right, so I don't have an actual graphic or list, but obviously you mentioned Darren Waller with a hamstring injury. He's expected to play. One thing about Waller is the downside to him is what did he play? Like, how many games did he play last year? Like, not a lot. He's going to miss games, but with a guy this dominant, and especially the reports we were getting out of camp, how he was just absolutely dominating everybody. It's a huge deal. It's absolutely game-changing news if he is out. Probably going to play. The other guy on New York to talk about is Wan'Dale Robinson. He's doubtful He just needs a little bit more time from that ACL injury. If he integrates his way back into this team like healthy, I think he can be like the number 3 option potentially, or number 4 option on this team. Just more depth. When you look at Dallas, they don't really have any players that we would click as far as injuries, but there are players that if they're out could be a big deal. And you got a guy like Tyler Smith on the offensive line who's doubtful. He's probably not going to play. PFF has him ranked at 16th in run blocking and 25th overall at the tackle position or the guard position. Tyron Smith, questionable. That's kind of big news. Having a backup left tackle come in against a team that has some pretty good pass rushers. Donovan Smith, safety, he's doubtful. He's ranked 4th in pass rush grade from PFF. So, look, what do we do if one of these linemen is going to be out? The better one, Tyler Smith, is going to be out, most likely. He's doubtful. If Tyron Smith is out, I mean, what are you changing here? Are you going to be avoiding run? Are you looking more towards New York Giants defense, or does it really not matter too much to you?
Look, I think Wink Martindale is going to do his best to take advantage of that situation if they are out. So, again, I just think that the total may be impacted a little bit, but I don't know if it changes my strategy too much. I think you just favor the run game a little bit more for Dallas. I think if anything, it puts kind of Dak in a shitty situation, not having either of his tackles or whatever, right? Kayvon Thibodeau is going to come off the edge and try and whip his ass. And then remember, don't forget, right? They traded for a superstar Arizona safety linebacker hybrid, Isaiah Simmons. So this could be like, he's going to turn into Aeneas Williams now, right? He's going to go win his championship and get everything that he can from the Giants. So I think that Wink's going to be able to take advantage of the situation if those guys are out. But otherwise, I'm really not going to overthink it, right? It's still showdown, so we want to play the best players and just really find some value that we're comfortable with getting some exposure to.
All right, let's get into this breakdown here. Break it down. All right, so we got both quarterbacks here. I'm very interested in. Dak Prescott is 10K. Daniel Jones is 9,400. So look, Daniel Jones at 9,400, a guy that can run the ball. I mean, dude, he had 708 rush yards last year and 7 touchdowns rushing. So that's a huge boost, and he's 9,400. Now he's going up against a pretty good defense here. So that is, I'm not married to a guy like Daniel Jones in this game at that price. We saw Jared Goff was 9,400 last night, and that's a much better option for a team that's going to pass the ball quite a bit. Now, what are your thoughts here on these guys? Any interest at captain? Are these flex only plays? If you think that this game can hit the under, are you fading one of these quarterbacks, like limiting your lineups to one quarterback? Like, where are you at with these QBs?
So it's an interesting situation. I think, again, it comes down to whether or not Waller plays. Like, I think if Waller plays, you may be in a situation where you have to determine whether or not you want to fade one of the quarterbacks or, build a certain type of way. But if he's out, I think there's some value that opens up enough that you can probably get exposure to both these guys. I do like Daniel Jones at the captain spot, just because he has that rushing upside. Dallas hasn't necessarily been as great on the road. Last year, they averaged 24 and a half points per game and 30 points per game at home. So that's a pretty big difference. So I do think that this is a game Daniel Jones can keep the Giants in it. And look at that point distribution. Like, we're expecting 14 to 20 points, pretty much. Like, that's really the range that we're expecting his performance to come into. So 32, 40, 47% of the Sims have him within that 14 to 20 point range, which is pretty much what we're looking to get, right? If he gets 20 points at the captain spot, he probably is going to be the optimal. And we saw it the other night, right? Patrick Mahomes was even scrambling a little bit. And I'd say that their receiver situation isn't much better than the Giants, right? The Giants are their guys are all fucking old. Like, who's going to be their number one guy coming into the year? You have Paris Campbell, you have Isaiah Hodgins, but they have literally never been number one wide receivers, and there's a reason for that. So, look, I think that there's some rushing upside to Daniel Jones. That's why I like him. Now, Dak Prescott, I love Dak. I love getting to a little bit of Dak. hopefully there's a little bit of a narrative with him. Did you see that he went and got a tattoo and needed to be put under? He had anesthesia so that he can get his leg
What?
tattoo.
What?
Yeah. So hopefully everybody's thinking that he's a little soft and decides to fade him. But, I think one thing to keep in mind is that 24 and a half, 25 points per game on the road and the loss of Kellen Moore. So when Kellen Moore came in, the Cowboys with Dak Prescott were only averaging like 23, 22.8 points per game. When Kellen Moore came in, they averaged what, 28 plus for 4 years. So those kinds of things matter. I have never had faith in Mike McCarthy. I think he's just an overrated coach. He had Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers to carry his career for a majority of it as a head coach. So it's easy to overcome some bullshit if you have two of the greatest to ever do it. So look, man, I don't believe in Mike McCarthy. I think Dak Prescott succeeds in spite of him, similar to what Deshaun Watson would do in Houston with Bill O'Brien. So like I think he's kind of a risky play. I'm curious to see where his ownership ends up. If he comes in under like 35%, I think he's an excellent captain spot. But it's the Cowboys. We know that he's going to get 60% ownership for 30%, 25% captain ownership. So I think you play him in the flex and determine whether or not you want to play both quarterbacks. If you think it's going to hit the under, you probably don't.
This Mike McCarthy offense, Dak is calling it the Texas Coast instead of West Coast. I honestly think there's probably a chance that their points per game are going to go down with Kellen Moore. We've seen Mike McCarthy talking about kind of throwing Kellen Moore into the bus, talking about, he wants to get his defense a little bit more time on the bench. Kellen Moore is coming out aggressive, and this team overall, both of the quarterbacks that played for them last year, both Rush and Dak Prescott, were both very, very aggressive, and that's why you're seeing Dak lead the league in interceptions. Can he bounce back? I mean, can he cut his interception total in half? I don't know, man. It's going to be tough. But there's one thing that you could say at least good about that is he's going out there and he's slinging the ball and he's trying to win. If he throws 2 picks but they score 30 points, does it really matter? I don't know. That's an interesting question to bring up. All right, let's go to running back here. Who do you want to start with? What team?
Let's start with Dallas.
All right, so let's talk about Dallas running back. So Tony Pollard is the guy. He's $11K. He's the most expensive guy on this entire slate, which is kind of interesting to me. Deuce Vaughn is $3K, and Rico Dowdle is $1,800. Now, the thing about these backups here, we'll talk about Pollard in a minute, but you got some value here to talk about. Dowdle is going to be the guy who is the number 2 guy. This guy, we don't really know much about Dowdle. We were kind of talking about him before we got on the show. And what does he have? He has 7 rush attempts in his career. Like, you had to literally look up his draft grades just to get any information about him. So maybe this guy is actually good. He's just been hurt a lot. Maybe he's actually pretty good. I mean, there's a reason why he's probably getting that number 2 spot. There's a lot of hype around Deuce Vaughn. I mean, he's a fun, interesting player. He's really small and he looks kind of funny out there, but he looks to be like a Darren Sproles type dude. But he's not really he's probably not going to get those snaps game 1 of his NFL career. Dowdle's $1,800, dude. Like, I'm seeing a ton of him in the Sims. Like, he's popping up quite a bit. He's an interesting play. He's not sexy, but this guy's going to be like 4% owned or 5% owned. Maybe. I mean, maybe it'll increase. My point here is Tony Pollard isn't obviously a great play. But it feels like, you might have to choose between Pollard and Saquon, depending on whether or not Waller plays. So getting a little bit of Rico Dowdle, maybe even a little handcuff action here, if we think it can hit the under, is interesting. Where are you going with these running backs? And like, thoughts on Pollard? Are you going to be like just locking this dude in? Are you going to be getting a ton of captain with him? He obviously has opportunity to make big plays and get a bunch of receptions out of the backfield as well.
So look, I think Pollard is an interesting play here. The one thing that I want to keep in mind is just because you have CD, you have Pollard, you have Dak, you have Daniel Jones, you have Darren Waller. There's just a lot of studs that are a little bit high priced. So you kind of got to get unique with roster construction. So if you're going to play Tony Pollard, I think the way to do it is a lot of people are probably going to go Dak, Tony Pollard, and then maybe run back with 4 Giants if they're doing a 2-4 with that route, or Dak, Tony Pollard, Pollard, and then a third Cowboy, and then 3 Giants. So maybe one of the ways you want to approach it is grabbing Tony and CeeDee Lamb and then running it back with 4 Giants, fade Dak, and that kind of build. So I like Tony Pollard. I'm curious to see what his workload is like. We saw what was going on in Dallas last year with Zeke and him. They were splitting touches, and Tony Pollard was getting a lot of volume. And like one of the I loved him in best ball. I love getting exposure to him in the offseason. But for these island games, one thing we got to consider is just like how much workload do we really think that he's going to get? So was his success dependent upon having Ezekiel Elliott and that kind of thunder and lightning type split, right? You're preparing for Zeke, and Tony Pollard just kind of breaks out and messes with your defense. But listen, I love Tony Pollard. I think that he's a great play. I just similar projection for Dak Prescott at a little cheaper price, and then I'm sure CD is going to be pretty close again at a cheaper price. Deuce Vaughn, I'm not really going to talk about him. He's 3K. He's too expensive for me. If he was closer to Dowdle's price, then I'd absolutely have a little bit of exposure just because I don't mind punting at the position and getting some of these value plays. But Dowdle is another is a guy that is interesting. He has 7 career carries. I think that he's going to be a little bit popular, to be honest with you, just because of his pricing.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit more interested in the value at tight end for the Giants, regardless of whether or not Waller plays. But I do think it's okay to have a little bit of exposure to Rico Dowdle, especially if you're doing MME. Again, only 7 carries. Maybe he's going to get some of the goal line work to help relieve Pollard. But again, like, what if this turns into a situation where Pollard's getting 97% of the volume? Then neither one of these guys are viable for a showdown format.
Yeah, because what are the splits going to be? Is it 75-25? 70-20-10? I mean, if Pollard is getting 60% of the snaps, is that enough? And who's getting the goal line carries? We knew when Zeke Elliott was here, he was getting the goal line carries. And that's why he would have like big touchdown years, because he was just getting the Jamal Williams type carries. Who gets those carries now? I honestly don't have the answer to that. If you know, well, you might win some money on this game. Let's go to the other side here. This is sort of similar here. You've got a stud, and then you got some dudes that we're kind of unsure about. You got Saquon Barkley at 10.6K. Now, I'm kind of surprised that he's cheaper than Tony Pollard here. It's only $400, but once you get into these really expensive dudes, that $400 can make a huge difference. Saquon, probably going to be one of the highest owned players on the slate behind the quarterbacks. I like him, of course. You're going to get your pass attempts from him. You're going to get your big play upside from him. And he's going to be on the field quite a bit. Matt Breida, 1,600. He's very interesting to me as well. I don't think that any of these other guys, Eric Gray was getting a little bit of hype, the rookie hype in camp, but it seems to me like it's Saquon 90%, Breida 10%-ish. I could be wrong about that. Maybe it's 80-20. But Breida at 1,600, it's another one of these guys that, you probably can mix in and still get some touchdown upside from these guys. So where are you thinking Barkley? If you had to choose between Barkley and Pollard, I don't know that you have to make that decision, but if you had to, where are you going?
Look, I guess I'm going Saquon just because of the savings. And obviously you can see that he's projected for a little bit more. That half a point, I don't know if it's really all that big of a deal. But look, Saquon, he's so explosive, man, and he has a lot to prove, especially coming off of his holdout. I don't get too caught up in some of these narratives, but I do think he wants to come out and beat the shit out of Dallas just to kind of just back up what his offseason was. And look, it's similar to what we were talking about with the Tony Pollard builds, right? I think that it's an interesting scenario, right? If Waller plays, maybe you want to go 4-2 and stack up the Cowboys in your 2, or Saquon and Darren Waller or something along those lines. So I love Saquon. Play him. He's one of the best running backs in the NFL. Matt Breida, he is an interesting one at 1,600. Like, I still think I probably prefer him over Rico Dowdle. We know that Breida is going to have some opportunity on the field, and quite frankly, Saquon, Saquon could be limited or get hurt, right? We know Saquon has struggles with staying healthy, and it's week one. There's no reason to go out and rush him. If he starts getting cramps or anything like that, we know that Matt Breida is going to pick up the slack. And we've seen it before. Matt Breida is explosive. He's fast. He can absolutely he can break a game. He's got enough breakaway speed to do so. The $200 guys, I don't think we need to get into. If any of those guys are active, we'll let you know in the Discord and tell you how much exposure that we plan to get, but probably none. I don't think any of those three will be active.
Yeah, I think probably Eric Gray will be active as a third option, but I'm not super interested in him until I see something else or figure out kind of where these splits go. Let's actually, I want to look briefly here. We're using SaberSim. I love this tool so much. This is pretty sick. Let's look at what some of these sims are popping out here as far as 95th percentile outcomes. So Pollard, Saquon Barkley, there's those ceilings of about 34 points. Dowdle and Breida are right around the same, around 14 points, 12 points for Breida. So that's just something to look at here. If we're looking for upside in tournaments, that's kind of a big deal, although that point difference isn't really enough to really make me change any of my opinions. All right, let's go to wide receiver here. Let's start with the Giants. This should be fun. So we've got Isaiah Hodgins, who to me, look, he came out of nowhere. He was signed off the street last year. What was it? Buffalo released him, and he ended up on the Giants. He was the number one guy. There was a lot of injuries last year, obviously, but he looked pretty damn good. $6,400 for the number one wide receiver on an offense that's not bad. That's kind of interesting, but it's a similar situation like we were talking about with the Chiefs. Who is the number one guy? Are any of these guys above average? I don't know, man. Darius Slayton, we've seen him. What did he have? 700 yards last year. He's a pretty good option, but he's getting a little bit long in the tooth. He's 5,400. A guy like Jalen Hyatt at 4,600. The rookie coming in, he's a big play dude. We saw in camp. He got some big highlights in camp. I think Jalen Hyatt is a high upside guy, very, very boom bust type. Paris Campbell comes over. He's going to be in the slot. You probably can expect, 5 or 6 receptions out of him at minimum, or at least like 7 targets. I think he can get involved. He's also a guy that can line up in the backfield. So we're talking about, who's backing up Saquon. Well, maybe Paris Campbell gets a couple carries out of the backfield, or, end arounds or some gadget plays for Paris Campbell. Then you got Sterling Shepard, who not super interested in. If I had to rank these guys, in my opinion, it seems pretty obvious. Hodgins the number one, Paris Campbell the number 2 option, Darius Slayton the number 3, and Jalen Hyatt number 4. But he has high upside. He has higher upside as far as game slate breaking ability than all of these guys, in my opinion. So I think all of these dudes are going to be relatively, under 20% owned. If you wanted to throw one of these guys in the captain spot in these huge tournaments where there's 178,000 entries, I think it's probably a good option. And even throwing one of these dudes in without Daniel Jones is an option as well. So where are you going with these wide receivers? Are you overly interested in any of these guys?
Look, Jalen Hyatt's my guy. I got a decent amount of exposure to him just in past ball. Now, granted, that's different, right? Because we're expecting him to kind of grow and develop throughout the course of the season. And just one thing to consider, like of all the guys brought in, right? I mean, Jalen Hyatt's the one that was drafted by this team. Brian Daboll's in his second year as head coach, and I think he wants to build something on this offense. Now, again, you brought in Hodgins, you brought in Paris Campbell, so those guys are going to get some legit run. But Hyatt's that guy I really think that has, to your point, massive upside. He's going to play in the slot. He's going to slip up the field and probably bust one open for a touchdown. I think. Don't forget, the Dallas Cowboys defense is really good, but their issue is that they give up fucking chunk plays, right? That's what they do. Trayvon Diggs, he likes to jump routes and pick balls off. That the problem with that is it leaves people wide open. And if your star corner is doing that, it busts coverage in other places. Your safeties have to leak up to cover somebody else that wasn't supposed to be covered. So things like that happen. I do think it benefits Jalen Hyatt the most. Now, just for some more legit analysis on not just a guy who has potential slate breaking ability. But look at Isaiah Hodgins. The one thing that I think is really important about him, he's 6'4", like 215. Everybody else is 6 foot or under at the wide receiver position. So I don't, take that for what it's worth. But Stephon Gilmore, Trevon Diggs, they are not 6'4", 210. Right. It is difficult for corners to cover a body like that. So it's, especially if Darren Waller's out, it's very possible that he's just a big body target that Daniel Jones likes to get involved, just as a safety blanket. So I do like Isaiah Hodgins, and let's just put it this way, man. Like, it's a 45-point total, 3.5-point spread. What is that? That's like 24-21 is the projected score. So you could easily have one of these guys have 100 yards and a touchdown. And I think that they're all priced so nice that I'm not really all that concerned about it. I think you can grab Daniel Jones, one of these guys, Waller and fucking Saquon if you want, and you could be fine if that's your 4 stack. If you just want Daniel Jones and one of these guys, that's fine too. I think you can play Hodgins at the captain. I think he's probably the only one I'd be willing to run at the captain spot. But look, I like Hodgins. I like Hyatt. I think you can sprinkle in some Slayton and Campbell. Slayton is just hard for me because, I mean, he just hasn't been involved. We saw it last year. I don't remember if he was hurt at the beginning of the season, but I don't know. He's older. I don't know. I think he's on the team because there's a dead cap hit if they cut him. There's just a lot going on with Darius Slayton. I don't know. I'm not really a believer, to be completely honest with you. And, just quite frankly, he's going to be matched up against either Stephon Gilmore or Trevon Diggs. So that is something to keep in mind.
Exactly. You got Hodgins and Slayton usually will line up on the inside, on the outside. Slayton sometimes in the slot, but most likely Paris Campbell's going to be in the slot. And Paris Campbell is going up against Teron Bland, who's pretty good. He's like the top third of cornerbacks when it comes to that. So this is not a good matchup for the Giants. Now, to me, it really doesn't, like, there's a huge drop off. There's Waller, tier A, and then you got Saquon as like the other pass catching option, and then it's Hodgins like C. Yep. So do I think that Hodgins can have a touchdown and 100 yards? Absolutely. But to me, his amount of opportunities he's going to get in this game is just not going to be enough for me to click him into a ton of my lineups. I'm going to probably be kind of limiting him, but look, he's not going to grade out well. He's probably not going to be in a ton of my lineups anyways. But at 6,400, a guy that can get you 20 fantasy points is kind of interesting. I just don't know that it's going to happen in this particular game. All right, let's move over to the other side here. So Dallas, we've got CeeDee Lamb. We haven't even talked about CeeDee Lamb. One of my favorite players in the NFL. As far as wide receivers, I think he's underrated. Am I crazy to say that? I think he's a little underrated, especially you kind of saw in best ball him going around pick 12. He was even going behind Nick Chubb a little bit. I do think that CeeDee Lamb is an incredible option on the season, obviously. But one thing that we're not talking about here is Brandon Cooks. 7,200. Brandon Cooks comes over. He's got what, 4,000 yard reception season under his belt. That's pretty impressive. This guy can play, and I think that nobody's really talking about him much, and I don't really understand why. I think that's a huge deal to get another guy like Brandon Cooks in here. Obviously, Cooper left, but CeeDee Lamb, Cooks, and Gallup, to me, that's a very, very, very strong wide receiver core. Probably one of the best in the league. What do you think?
I think you're right on. I have so much CeeDee Lamb, so much Brandon Cooks, and so much Michael Gallup in my best ball. I know this isn't a best ball show, but I do want to tell you guys that I do believe in this offense and that they're going to have explosive upside. And to your point, Brandon Cooks has 6 1,000 yard seasons.
Six.
So, yeah. Like, he's just one of the quietest, most awesome wide receivers that we've seen, right? Like, he's really good, man. And I think people are sleeping on him. Like, you're going to be hard pressed. I expect Brandon Cooks to probably get a lot more run in the slot. And you'll have CD and Gallup split out wide. You might even have CD running some slot now. I think that they're going to be a little bit more creative in kind of how they line these receivers up.
Well, CD got the most targets in the slot last year. So
Oh yeah.
I think they're going to rotate him around a lot. I mean, CD last year ran 594 snaps in the slot and 523 wide. So he's kind of split where he's going to go. They're gonna motion him around a lot. I think that's when he usually ends up in the slot. So these guys are all flexible. I mean, Cooks last year, he only had 156 snaps in the slot, and he had about 500 at wide. But we don't know what his position. I think there was some rumors on Twitter about him getting more slot run this year, or actually no, that was Gallup. That was getting those rumors. So, dude, it's very strong wide receivers. I think I'm going to be heavily involved in all of these guys, especially if I'm getting Dak at captain. I'm going to want to get one, maybe two of these dudes in the flex. And even if let's just say I want to get one of these dudes like Brandon Cooks at captain or something, who's got breakaway speed and can get some huge plays. I don't even know if I need Dak in the flex. There's some interesting things to look at here with these wide receivers. Now, Tolbert, to me, he's $1,000. I'm not interested in him. You got a guy like Kevontae Turpin, who we know has some speed, some game-breaking ability when it comes to the return game. I just don't think he's going to get involved much in the offense. I think there's three dudes you want to focus on and then forget about the rest of them. CeeDee Lamb at 10.4K, he is, what is he, like the third highest priced guy? The odds that he can be the leading scorer in this game are pretty high, in my opinion.
Yeah, man. CeeDee Lamb's one of my favorite plays. I'm gonna have a shitload of exposure to him. I think really the other guy that, to your point, Brandon Cooks. I think he's just really an excellent captain option as well. At his price, he really does. We talked about Isaiah Hodgins having the ability to have 100 yards and a touchdown. He actually has the ability to go out and have 120 yards and 2 touchdowns, no problem. Nobody will blink if Brandon Cooks does that, right? Nobody will be shocked. So look, at 7,200, it'll give you a lot of flexibility, and especially if Waller is active, you might want some of that flexibility to stack these offenses, especially if you think that the over is possible.
Let's go to tight ends here. So Jake Ferguson at 4,800. He's supposedly the number one guy. Dalton Schultz moved on. He went to Houston. Jake Ferguson is now the guy. The biggest thing to talk about here is under Kellen Moore. I don't know what the difference is going to be, now that they don't have Kellen Moore. But they were running a lot of 3 tight end sets. All 3 tight ends were getting involved. They went out and drafted Luke Schoonmaker. He's $600. Peyton Hendershot, we saw, got involved in the red zone a couple times. He's more of the pass catching guy. Jake Ferguson is the pass catcher, blocker. Overall, he's kind of like Dalton Schultz, generally speaking. Peyton Hendershot is a guy that has higher upside pass catching wise. We don't know what to expect from Luke Schoonmaker. So to me, though, at 4,800 for Jake Ferguson, I'm not interested in him at all. I'm just not. He's not coming in with a very good projection. His ownership will be relatively low. If he does score a touchdown, maybe he gets you 8 fantasy points. It's not going to ruin your night, most likely, especially with that price tag. I'd rather go with Peyton Hendershot. I don't know. What do you think?
Or Luke Schoonmaker. So the problem with Jake, think Rashee Rice, right? It's the same scenario. He could easily have a touchdown, maybe 3 receptions for 8 yards and a touchdown. That's really not going to get it done at his price tag. If he was 2,200, that's perfect. That's absolutely perfect. But I really don't expect it to happen. If their tight ends are on the field, it's probably going to be the block for Tony Pollard, or it's going to. I mean, look, here's the thing. In a game like this, if you're throwing a Jake Ferguson an extended amount of time, what happened to Brandon Cooks, Gallup, and CeeDee Lamb, that's really kind of what I'm concerned about. And another thing, right, if he's a more balanced pass blocker, you're not going to have a bunch of rookies trying to pass pro for Dak Prescott or Peyton Hendershot, right? We saw him get involved in passing situations. Jake Ferguson is the more reliable blocker. So if they're going to be out 2 tackles and potentially another lineman, he might be in there just to be an additional blocker. Same with Sean McKeon, another random dude that could end up being active, right? So I don't like this tight end spot. I think there's better value that you can get somewhere else. I honestly might even be more apt to play a kicker over Jake Ferguson in this matchup.
Oh yeah.
Later on in the season, I do think that he's going to get involved in the offense. But again, I'm also a Mike McCarthy hater, man. I just don't trust that he's going to be able to properly utilize everybody in this offense.
And look, just to pile on, Mike McCarthy is now calling plays, and he has to manage the clock, and he has to be a head coach. That's, to me, that just feels like a recipe for disaster, man. It really does. All right, let's go to the other side. Now, here's the big news, obviously, is Darren Waller's questionable. He's 8,400. Now, if we're getting good reports throughout the day, if we see him in warm-ups, and obviously, if we're getting good reports, I'm going to freaking play the crap out of him. I think people may be a little bit worried. People who maybe were, this is a similar situation to Kelsey. This guy's the number one target on the team, and he can dominate. So if he's questionable and there's any sort of, question as to what his, is he going to be 100%? Is he going to be 80%? Is he not going to be on the field the whole time? His ownership, I think, is going to be a little bit depressed. And I think that he's a guy that can score 2 touchdowns and 100 yards in a game like this. And his ownership will be low, and he's $8,400, dude. So obviously Darren Waller is an incredible play. He's dealt with injuries in the past. That's the reason why he's not an elite tight end, but we saw him in camp. We heard about the rumors. He's going to be a guy who gets 10, 15 targets a game. They're going to have to double team him, which may end up opening things for guys like Hyatt and, some other guys down the field. But if he's active, I'm all in on him. I'm super interested in him. But here's the interesting thing is Daniel Bellinger's $400. Now, Daniel Bellinger is probably a guy who is going to get his ceiling is a 5-yard touchdown. This guy just doesn't, like, most of his targets were behind. I think it was 80-something% of his targets were either behind the line of scrimmage or under 9 yards. So he doesn't have a ceiling, and he's in there to block, dude. Like, we could see both of these guys on the field together quite a bit. We could see Waller lining up in the slot or, motioning around. I don't know exactly how they're going to use him yet. He's new to the team. There's some mystery to it. But to me, a guy like Daniel Bellinger, who's one of the top-rated blocking tight ends in the league. Well, I wouldn't call it top. He's ranked 17th out of 72, but he's not a good offensive option. When you look at Waller, 12th PFF ranked 12th out of 73 tight ends, and we know he probably should be higher than that. So, anyways, any interest in Bellinger? Cager is actually questionable. So if Cager's out, Bellinger looks even more interesting to me.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I like Bellinger a lot. He's kind of the guy that I was talking about. I like him if Waller's in, and I especially like him if Waller's out. The thing is like, how do we balance, or how do we account for a wide receiver core that's really not that deep and with no true number one? Darren Waller's your number one. You said it earlier. He's by far their best skill player outside of Saquon Barkley. He's going to be their best pass catcher. So I think it's Darren Waller, Saquon, and then look, man, I don't even mind like fucking handcuffing Waller and Bellinger, right? If you want to put a Waller a captain and then use Daniel Bellinger as a punt play, there's real utility in that, because I think Daniel Bellinger is going to get some run at the actual tight end position while they put Darren Waller in the slot, line him up outside wide, right? And he's going to be put into motion to try and keep the defense on its feet, right? I mean, I would pay to watch Trevon Diggs try and guard Darren Waller in the open field. Like, that's a fun matchup, right? So look, man, I think first of all, Waller at 8,400 is just a great play. Like, if he is active, I don't want to, we haven't gotten to captain yet, but I would change my captain if we're sure that he plays. Like, he probably is my favorite captain play of the slate. Right now, there's still too much in the air, so I played a little bit safe. But look, I like Waller, and look, if you're willing to play Rico Dowdle, like, I think you have to be willing to play Daniel Bellinger. There's an opportunity. There's a chance that they both get the same amount of plays, the same amount of snaps. The difference is Dowdle requires a big play or a touchdown. Bellinger, he could have five receptions for -2 yards and still be fine. You know what I mean? So, like, that stuff matters. I mean, Sam Laporta, he bullshitted his way to me getting third place the other day. Yeah. Right. So, like, we gotta account for that stuff, and it does matter to some extent. But now don't go play, over 10, 15% of him. Right. Sprinkle in some of these guys. There's plenty of random cheap value on this slate to kind of balance it out, but I think he's probably one of my favorites.
All right, let's go to kickers and defense here. So Cowboys defense 5,200, Giants defense 3,400. You got Brandon Aubrey, who I've never heard of in my life, and Graham Gano 4K, and Aubrey's 4,200. These are normal prices for kickers. Cowboys defense, they're priced up a little bit. I get it because they have this high upside for sacks with Micah Parsons. You got high upside for interceptions with Trevon Diggs. You also have a high upside for giving up giant plays with Trevon Diggs. So, I mean, look, you have to consider playing these defenses in a game like this, division rivalry game, outdoors. I know it's not gonna be cold or anything, but it's week 1, dude. There's not 4 preseason games. These teams usually come out look a little bit sloppy. That's a perfect opportunity to grab some defenses, right?
Yeah, man, absolutely. So I don't mind the Cowboys defense. Obviously, at 5,200, they're probably, excuse me, fine. Um, a little expensive for my taste, but especially if Waller's out, they're definitely in play. Giants defense at 3,400 is actually kind of interesting. If you wanted to be super weird in one of these larger field contests, maybe go Dak Prescott at captain and CD or whatever, or Tony Pollard. Like, I think you can run it back with 3 Giants and then the Giants defense. Like, that's a pretty super contrarian option, but we saw it the other night. If Detroit had a touchdown, that kind of stuff matters if you don't have too much other value crushing. So if Blake Bell doesn't get that touchdown, it's very possible that the Lions defense ends up in the optimal over him, right? Because Josh Reynolds took away a lot of the salary. But other than that, like Aubrey Graham or Drake at the kicker position, yeah, I don't mind getting a little bit of exposure to him. That was a bad joke, guys. I'm sorry, but he's fine. 4,200 and Graham Gano. Just the rule for kickers, you probably don't need both. One is fine, especially for a competitive matchup that has a 3.5 point spread. Vegas thinks that it could come down to a field goal. So who knows?
All right, let's go to our captain, our favorite captain option. This is our Crown the Ass segment. Favorite captain on DraftKings, 4 tournaments.
Now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass.
RIP Denny Green. Crown their ass. I'm going CD. You're going Danny Dimes. I like both of these options, man. Danny Dimes has that rushing upside, and as a quarterback, if your quarterback has a slightly above average game passing wise, and he gets a rushing touchdown, especially in like a lower total game, man, that is brutal. You just can't recover from it if you don't have enough Danny Dimes at captain. So if you get, let's just say he gets 50 yards rushing and a touchdown and throws for 210 yards and a touchdown, that might be enough, dude. And he's $9,400. CeeDee Lamb to me is one of these guys that probably will get 10 receptions, 100 yards, and a touchdown. You can probably just mark it down. Now, whether or not he has a bigger game than that, who knows? But I think his floor is high, and I do really like. I like CeeDee Lamb at his price too. He's not the highest price guy either. What are your thoughts on CD for captain?
I like CD at captain, man. I think CD is an interesting option because, look, I don't know if you need to necessarily be as heavy on Dallas. I think you grab a couple of their skill players, grab a CD at captain, and then stack them with Tony Pollard, maybe fade Dak. This is a game I think the Giants are probably going to end up winning, so I think I want a little bit more exposure to them. Maybe running a 2-4 is fine. So, the Giants had stuff to figure out in the offseason. They had reasons to play certain guys in the preseason. That's not something that the Cowboys needed. They know who they are for the most part. They know what to expect, and you weren't out there running with the ones all that much. So I think there's still some stuff that the Cowboys need to figure out offensively. Right, they're going to get a little bit more rhythm playing, similar to what we saw with the Chiefs and Lions the other night. I think some of these teams that are on the bubble of being good, we don't know who they are have more reason to come out and fight on these week 1 matchups. But these teams that are probably division winners already, probably going to make the playoffs just based on who they are. They don't necessarily need to be as engaged. This is week 4 of the preseason as far as they're concerned. So like I think it's something to consider. And because of that, I actually do think CD is an interesting play just because he's going to get his regardless of what happens. And he's an easy way to fade Dak Prescott and still make up for a lot of the offensive output.
And CD is probably going to be going up against Adoree Jackson at corner, who's not a bad corner by any means, but he's not top end. And
he's really fast. That's the thing about Adoree Jackson. He's fast.
And you also have, but look, you also have 2 Giants rookie corners. You got Trey Hawkins in the 6th round and Deonte Banks in the 1st round. So who knows how good they're going to be. There could be some wide open plays there. All right, let's talk about our fade of the night. I think Ellie actually has, he punted last night with the defense fade, which actually kind of, I don't know if that was correct or not, but let's see if he can be a little bit more bold tonight. Let's try this.
We couldn't do diddly poo.
All right, Ferguson, I don't mind it. On paper, look, he needs to have a way above average game than I think he's ever had. For me, I'm fading Slayton simply because, look, I just don't know what his role is going to be. He's one of these guys that could absolutely come out and have 0 catches for 0 yards. What worries me when I fade a guy like Slayton is he could have a 75-yard touchdown. I don't know that he's going to be getting these 10-target outcomes, especially if we got Waller involved. But to me, Slayton is a guy that, yes, I can see him doing okay, but his price and just the shit show that is the wide receivers here, I would rather go with Hyatt. I'd rather go with Hodgins. And I'll throw a couple of Slayton, maybe like 2 or 3 with Slayton at captain, just in case if he goes absolutely nuts. All right, let's do a lineup build together here. Let's just hand build on DraftKings here. Let me switch over here. All right, I don't know what happened to let me see if I can fix this. Make this a little bit. All right, that's fine. All right, so what do you want to do here, man? Like, do you want to build like kind of a cashy type build, assuming that Waller's in, like something like safe that you could probably play in a head-to-head or like maybe a smaller single entry?
Yeah. Well, let's start. What do you think? Saquon or Tony Pollard, the captain?
Yeah, I honestly just don't know. Like, maybe you go quarterback here. I maybe you go quarterback. Like maybe you go Prescott.
Let's build with Dak. Let's build with Dak at captain.
I mean, honestly, I probably would play Saquon. That's just me. But let's build with Dak at captain. All right, so I don't care about whether it's a 3-3, a 4-2. Let's just try to get the best value and the highest floors and some decent ownership here. Let's try to go Pollard and Barkley together. Don't you think?
Yeah.
Let's just we can't go CeeDee Lamb. We can't that's the hard part here. Is maybe we need to choose between one or the other here. I don't know. Where do we go, dude? This is kind of hard because we have a quarterback who runs the ball and we have one of the top wide receivers in the league just sitting on our bench right now.
So let's pull out Tony Pollard. Let's put in a CD, and then can we get Danny Dimes? What does that put us at for salary? That's going to be pretty tight, huh?
4,600. If we think there's a lower owned guy, like, but I'm not confident right now with any of these low owned guys. All these low owned guys are tournament options. There's not that smash value. Now, obviously, if we have the injury news that we're looking for, and it comes out that Darren Waller's out, then Bellinger is a smash cash play at $400. But I don't think he's going to be out. So we're going to have to make tough decisions here. Maybe you want to go a little bit cheaper in the captain?
Yeah. Look, I mean, if we can, I don't know if this is too crazy for cash, but like Waller at captain might be optimal cash build.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but I agree with you there, man. So let's just try this. Let's get one of the two best running backs. So because we have Waller, let's go Pollard here.
Works for me.
Let's try to grab both quarterbacks. Still got $7,000. So this is like a kicker situation, most likely, and maybe a defense for cash. I don't know. What do you think?
You want to, throw in the Giants defense and what's his name? Drake. Aubrey.
Can't get Aubrey. Can't get him.
Okay.
That's tough. Let's try it. Let's put in.
Can we get Gano? What are we at?
Well, let's put Gano in, but then you're left with $3,000. So you got to go with Dowdle. Like, look, if Dowdle's really the second. If Dowdle's really the second running back on this team, maybe that's a good option, but I don't know, man. This is tough. This is really tough. Do we go? Like, there's nobody below Waller that I'm super comfortable playing with, like in cash. It's like definitely not. We don't have the injury news we need, so it's kind of up in the air. Like, I think you probably need to make a decision. Maybe you sit one of these quarterbacks. To me, let's sit Dak and
put in CD.
But he's $400 more expensive.
Yeah, he's
so
more expensive. Yeah, you're right.
That's tough, dude. Jump in the Discord. Obviously, we're gonna wait on inactives. I don't want to, for cash. I'm just not comfortable with really committing to anything right now. It's a little bit weird. Let's build tournament lineups because this is where we can actually have some fun here. So, do you want to do Danny Dimes first, since that was your captain option?
Let's do it. Let's go Danny Dimes. Let's fade Dak in this one. Let's go CD and Pollard. Let's go Pollard.
Got to get Waller here, right?
Yeah, go Waller and Bellinger. Like, I'm serious, man. I'm gonna run this shit. Like, I will play this lineup.
It's 5,700, dude.
Yeah,
not bad. Cowboys defense, Slayton, Ferguson, your boy Hyatt.
Yeah, honestly, I think you play all three of them. Like, that's three lineups. Like, I also don't hate the Cowboys defense. You know what I mean? It's pretty contrarian, especially for some of the deep field GPPs. Daniel Jones might be able to get there on his own. You know what I mean? Daniel Bellinger just needs a couple receptions to pay off. Darren Waller a touchdown or two, and then still throw a pick six, fumble recovery. Dallas defense is right in there, so I don't hate it, man. You get a lot of flexibility for one to play a guy like Bellinger. So
let's try something. Instead of Pollard, let's go Barkley, and then let's play Dowdle instead of Bellinger.
Okay.
4,700. Hyatt, Paris Campbell, Drake, Gano, Giants, anybody you want. Hyatt here. You got Daniel Jones at captain. You got three pass catchers basically with him in the flex. Could work out for you. You got CeeDee Lamb, the best player on Dallas, with a punt on Dallas. This is kind of an interesting build. All right, let's try CeeDee Lamb at captain and see what happens. Oops. The fact that we had Daniel Jones at captain at a good price, now we're jumping up to CeeDee Lamb. It's going to make things very interesting here. So, what do you think we should do? Should we fade Dak in the flex? Should we do do you want to do a 2-4 here? You want to do like CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks? No, we shouldn't do that. No, not without Dak. We should probably get Pollard or Dowdle or Deuce Vaughn or some random dude, right?
And this might be a little crazy. I don't mind like CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup. Gallup could have 10 receptions and 80 yards, no touchdowns.
All right. You want to go Daniel Jones here? You want to do no quarterbacks? We're going to have to get weird.
No, throw in Daniel Jones. Throw in Daniel and Saquon. Waller. Can we do it?
We can, dude. We got to get stupid here. Who can we get here?
I don't know if we're comfortable playing anybody.
Look, Wan'Dale Robinson.
If he's active.
Look, Wan'Dale Robinson, if he is active, screw it. He's $200. McKeon, if he's active. Luke Cager, if he's active. There's no $200 guys that I'm super interested in. Like Kevontae Turpin, maybe gets a kick return touchdown. Eric Gray, I don't even know if he'll be active. There's probably nobody here, but this is a weird lineup that I kind of like. You'd have to punt at that last position, and if you get like a random couple receptions or something, you'd probably be good.
All right, hey, what about this? Pull out Gallup and go Ferguson.
All right, let's go Ferguson, 4,800.
It's nothing crazy, but it'll give us another $1,000 to work with.
Jalen Tolbert, Hendershot.
Yeah, that's not helpful at all.
Yeah, it's not helpful. This is a tough build. This is much tougher than that Thursday night game, in my opinion, because you've got a lot of dudes here. Like, let's look at all these guys. Let's get Pollard in there at the most expensive. You got Barkley, Lamb, Prescott, Jones. Like, these guys are all top-notch plays, and then you got Waller. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can't really see that, but that says negative 15,000 left on that. I mean, all of these guys are absolutely good. It's going to be tough, dude. You got any other weird ideas to go with here?
All right, leave Tony Pollard at captain. Let's just do a 1-5. Go Daniel Jones. Can we go Saquon and Waller?
Yeah, if you get crazy, you want to go Hyatt or Dowdle or something?
Put in Bellinger. And what does that leave us with?
47 leaves us with quite a bit. You got Hyatt or Paris Campbell.
Throwing Hyatt, Paris Campbell, yeah, that's fine. I think this might be the type of build that you kind of got to be comfortable with, and you're not overstacking the pass game, right? I mean, Bellinger, who knows what he does? $400, he might just be giving you the flexibility you need to actually get real football players in your lineup.
Yeah, so pricing is a lot tighter here. You're going to have to, like me, I'm going to try to get as many lineups as I possibly can. I'm going to try to get a mini max, multiple 20 maxes, and just try to spread myself out, because you're going to have to fade important dudes in certain lineups. Like, you're not going to be able to get Pollard, Barkley, and both quarterbacks. You're not going to be able to get Waller at 8,400. That's why, to me, I think Waller at captain is an incredible option, because he has that high upside, and he allows you to probably get 3 studs along with him. And then you have to make some tough decisions from there. But what are you thinking, man? Because to me, this is a lot more difficult of a puzzle to put together than that Thursday night game, because there was so many options, and there was some decent value to be had. I don't know, dude. What do you like? Look, if Waller ends up being out, which is very possible. I don't think it's going to happen, but it is very possible. That changes the whole slate. And if that's the case, you guys better join our Discord, because we're going to be in there. We're going to be figuring things out, similar to what we did with the Kelsey news. What are you thinking, man? This is an interesting slate here.
Yeah, look, man, I think Darren Waller, if he's active, is probably the best captain play. He's going to give you the most flexibility that you need. Outside of that, man, you just got to have the balls to be able to play some of these $200 dudes sometimes. You're not this slate particularly, right? I think $400 was as low as we would go. But even looking at some of the other guys in that price range, $1,200 up to almost $2,000, like, I still kind of prefer Bellinger. And just from an opportunity cost perspective, you're losing out on a lot of salary going up to the other guys. So, look, man, you're going to have to fade somebody. Build, we talked about it on the last show, build with a game script in mind, build a story, and make your lineup, or have a story, have your lineup tell that story. I think that's the easiest way to go. And I don't know if you need to do anything crazy on this slate. Like, you know, no kickers at captain. Like, don't pull any shit like that, and I think you'll be fine.
Yeah, man. Figure out a game script in your head, and how does an optimal lineup look with a certain game script, and just tell a story as many lineups as you have. Obviously I'm using the Sims and an optimizer. I will hand build a couple lineups, but especially for a slate like this where there's just so many different outcomes, I'm going to step away a little bit, and I'll have some bold takes, and I'll act on those, but I'm going to let the Sims and Saber Sim kind of help me out to try to figure out what I really want to do here. At minimum, just looking at the numbers like we were, and kind of figuring out the probabilities that what some of these lower owned dudes can end up with, I think is important. Ellie, what is your final score prediction? And I'll throw this at you. Who's your low owned guy that can score a touchdown in this game?
Daniel Bellinger. Okay, he's the touchdown. Final score, I'm going to go 24-17 New York Giants.
Interesting. I'm going Peyton Hendershot touchdown, and I'm going 23-14 Cowboys. Hitting the under. All right, we will see you guys later. Make sure you throw us a like. The Monday night show that you guys, the next show that you guys would be expecting to see from us will be members only. It's so go ahead and click join down below. It's $3.99 a month. We're doing obviously 4 of those showdown slates, probably 4. I guess that'll work out that way per month. $3.99 a month. Hit join, and obviously join that Discord. We will see you guys later.